Today's topic, I'm going to break down the four most important steps when trying to figure out what is a good monthly retirement income. So this could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The easiest way to break this down into different categories is to understand what age that you're looking to retire, understanding what lifestyle that you want to have in retirement, understanding what sort of health that you're in right now, and then what you expect to have in retirement. Meaning, have you had some ailments, cancers, heart attacks, strokes, and you feel like you're still about 10 years out from retirement? That might be a situational change where you might want to trigger Social Security income earlier rather than later. And really, that step four is Social Security maximization or optimization strategies. So everything correlates to one another. When I'm utilizing kind of those four main areas to help you understand what is a good monthly retirement income, when we're talking about age, if somebody wants to retire in their 50s, that's a whole slew of different planning than when somebody wants to retire in their 60s. And why is that? When you're looking at somebody trying to retire in their 50s, they have to make sure that they're leveraging their assets properly. If, let's say, they have a boatload of monies that are sitting in IRA accounts and they want to try to retire in their early 50s or in their mid 50s, that might be a problem because an individual typically can only start accessing their IRA monies at age 59 and a half or later. So therefore, they might have to leverage other non-qualified assets or assets sitting in a 401k account if they retired through that company, where they're able to leverage laddering strategies to make sure they didn't take their 401k and roll it over into an IRA, and therefore take it from a 55 rule to a 59 and a half rule. So that's one little mechanism, and it's really just about laddering into that next step. A large portion, or really a large asset when it comes to retirement income in general, is Social Security income. Well, individuals typically can't touch can't leverage Social Security income until at least age 62. So if you're looking to retire earlier and you're expecting, oh, okay, if I just retire at age 60 as an example, then I'll trigger my Social Security income. Well, if that's not possible, then obviously that means you have to draw down other accounts to ladder to that age 62 marker, or maybe your full retirement age might be 66 or 67 or 65 and some change. So it's all about making sure that you're categorizing exactly and knowing what is your ideal retirement age, and then you're scaling backwards. Then you're trying to figure out, okay, these are my expenses right now. These are what my expenses are going to be when I hit my ideal retirement date. Is there going to be a drop in expenses? Is there going to be larger expenses? What exactly does that situation look like? And that's where lifestyle, really that step two, comes into play, because typically when somebody retires, they go through three main stages. They go through something called the go-go years, then they start nearing something called the slow-go years, and then it goes into the no-go years. So like as an example, let's say if somebody retires in their early 60s, and they're no longer working, they're collecting their different retirement assets. Maybe they have pension income, maybe they have Social Security income, maybe they're leveraging annuity income, and they understand that their income sources are going to be greater than or equal to their expenses, in their 60s. So maybe between their 60s to their early 70s, they're going to be on the go. They're going to say, okay, this is where I hit my ideal retirement stage. This is where I want to travel. This is where I want to do my fishing every week. This is where I want to do my golf leagues every week. Whatever that case is, whatever that ideal retirement stage is, how do you make that possible? What exactly is the math involved? And then basically back up into the math. If you don't have enough income streams coming to you, but then you have these different ancillary assets sitting there, well, then maybe you might have to start peeling off some of those assets for at least the next 5 to 10 years, and then stop peeling off when you start going into that next stage, which is your slow-go years. That's basically saying typically when somebody's in their 70s and they say, you know what, I don't need to do this crazy vacation every year. Maybe I'm just going to slow down a little bit. Maybe I'll take one trip every 6 months, or 3 trips a year. Whatever that situation is, they're going to start to slow down. So maybe that requires less income that would be coming to them, and they would actually have a drop off in income, and maybe have more ancillary dollars left over. And then the last stage is really the no-go years, that year or that stage that may be in your late 70s, early 80s, early 90s, whatever the case is, where you can't move around as well as you once did. So now it's, unfortunately, the highlight of your week might be bringing in the garbage cans and not really leaving the house. And now you have to rely more on the healthcare play of saying, okay, let me see what Medicare is covering. Let me make sure my doctor visits are my priority, And then if I, have some sort of chronic ailments, maybe look at some sort of long-term care related needs, an assisted living facility or a home health aide helping you out. That's where really that no-go years, comes into play. So if you remember from a lifestyle standpoint, and this could correlate to really what age you want to retire. Maybe you say, okay, I want to retire in my late 50s or my early 60s, and I understand because I'm in really good health, or because of really just what I see as my ideal retirement date between 60 to 75. I want to make sure that I'm always receiving this much income, but then around 75, I want to drop that income down. Or maybe I want to leverage more of these incomes towards a maximum inheritance strategy at that point, because you're not going to be traveling as much. You're not going to be spending the monies on you as much as maybe your family and your grandkids, or whatever that situation is. So really that's step three. So step one, we understand, is age, understanding the correct age. Step two is understanding your lifestyle, really the go-go years, slow-go years, no-go years. And then that step three aspect is understanding your health. What is your health? What is, unfortunately, the cards that you were dealt. Maybe you're super healthy, you don't drink, you don't smoke, and you just have, poor ailments in your bloodline. And you had parents that passed away early. You have brothers and sisters that passed away early, and you're saying, okay, well, this is going to now impact when I want to trigger Social Security income, when I want to retire, because down my lineage, we've only really lived in our 70s. So I want to make sure to execute my retirement income strategies from my 50s, and start leveraging those, and really living my ideal retirement lifestyle. So maybe that's going to require more savings when I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, or maybe more bulk savings towards that later stage, to make sure that you're able to take care of that health situation. Maybe you have the opposite side of the coin is you have your parents, and you had brothers, sisters, cousins, everyone's living into their 90s, and they're fairly healthy, and you're very active. So you feel like, I want to take advantage of really the income sources of my pension, of my Social Security income. I really love my job. I don't want to retire until I'm at least 70 years old, or at least 65 years old. So then that could obviously be a change. It really just depends on where your health is, or where you project your health to be. If you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, and once again, you've had different ailments, you've had heart attack and strokes, and all of that, and statistically it's showing that maybe you might not live a long life. Well, then don't necessarily hold off on collecting those retirement income streams if that's not really important to you, to defer that. And it's important to you to really live the rest of your years with confidence, and making sure that you're able to kind of drain down your accounts proportionately. And then the last aspect is Social Security income. And this is a multitude of different ways. There's different Social Security optimization strategies where someone, if they trigger at age 62 versus if they wait to their full retirement age, let's say at age 66 or 67, well, if they do it at 62, they're going to have less of a benefit than if they wait till that full retirement age, 66, 67. And the reason being is because you're that much closer to death. So there's an incentive in order for you to not take out your Social Security income earlier. The Social Security Administration says, well, the longer you wait, we understand that the longer we're going to be able to hold on to ultimately these monies before paying it out to you. So that if, let's say, somebody has a time stamped on their head that they're going to pass away at age 90 as an example, and they decide to trigger Social Security income at 70 as opposed to triggering Social Security income at age 62, if they did it at age 62, that's 28 more years of payments from the Social Security Administration. Versus if at age 70, that's really only 20 years worth of payments. So there's different sweet spots that really based on what your other assets are. If you have pension income streams, if you have annuity income streams, different income sources, maybe you have rental properties and you could rely on that as a consistent income stream. So it's all about really backing up into the math and saying, okay, if I have me and my spouse, well, then there's also spousal benefits with Social Security planning. And this is where we try to help an individual figure out their situation. Regardless of whatever stage they're in, what we do is we create financial plans. One of the most important aspects of retirement planning is having a financial plan, and understanding exactly where your point A is, where your point B is, and how to get from point A to point B, to really your point A to your ideal retirement date successfully and efficiently, and then from point B until, as morbid as it might sound, date of death. Making sure that you're creating all those different strategies and all those stages so that it fits in like a perfect puzzle piece. And this is where we trademark the term, the retirement diet plan, because it allows us to give an actual financial plan to individuals and to look underneath the hood and say, your D in diet is distribution strategy. So looking underneath the hood and say, okay, how much income do I need to generate? When do I want to ideally retire? And how to back up into the math. The next aspect would be, investment planning or really growth related planning, and that's just really based on what your risk tolerance is and what sort of allocation strategies you want to leverage. If someone's more risk tolerant, then they could take on more risk. For somebody that's more risk averse, then they maybe want to leverage more fixed accounts or fixed index accounts, and then only a sliver of some high equity related risk or whatever that case might be. The E in diet stands for estate planning, and that could mean a couple of different things. That could mean inheritance maximization. That could mean making sure that you're leaving accounts over to your beneficiaries in the most tax efficient manner, whatever that case might be. And then T is tax planning, and this is something that's very impressive, is understanding how Roth conversions work. And we'll have situations where, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, this person's in a great scenario. They have pension income streams coming to them. They have, the husband and wife are going to be receiving joint pension. They're going to be receiving Social Security income, and those two aspects are going to be more than enough to cover their monthly expenses. And now they have all these 401ks and these qualified, pre-tax qualified accounts. They're just basically sitting on the sidelines. What are the correct mechanisms? When should somebody do conversions to make sure that they're staying within certain tax brackets, making sure that they're not over leveraging themselves, that they're not hurting themselves with having too much of their Social Security income being taxed by doing those conversions? So these are the different things that we highlight with our plans. If you found value in this video and at least understanding and memorizing those four main aspects of age, understanding your age, understanding your lifestyle, understanding what health situation you're in right now versus what health situation you might be in the future, and then Social Security, if that's appealing to you and you want to speak to a specialist, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. Make sure to reference this video, and then we'll be sure to have the correct advisor call you at your designated time slot where it works easiest for you. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.